Thank you. So, Mr. Secretary, I mentioned in my opening comments the RIF plans. On February 11th, President Trump signed an executive order requiring agency heads to plan, quote, large-scale reductions in force, known as RIFs, and agency reorganization plans. On March 27th, Senator Moran and I sent you a letter requesting that you send us the plans the department submitted to the White House. It's now June 4th. We've not received a response. We're in the middle of a budget hearing. First of all, you would agree, would you not, that your reorganization plans are relevant to the committee's consideration of the budget?
I think our proposal for the budget is clear, so I think it takes those things into account.
Mr. Secretary, let me ask you this. Are you going to provide us with the reorganization plan, and when?
I will certainly get together with the department, and we will consider what information we can give you that makes sense. But I'm happy to work with you offline if you'd like.
In February, President Donald Trump issued an executive order that fundamentally altered how federal agencies were expected to operate. This order called for the heads of agencies to create plans for large-scale workforce reductions and departmental reorganizations, known formally as reduction in force or RIF plans. These directives were not minor adjustments, but sweeping reforms aimed at significantly cutting the size of the federal workforce and reshaping the structure of numerous government departments. The executive order raised immediate concerns among lawmakers, public servants, and citizens alike, as the implications went far beyond administrative streamlining. It triggered a wave of uncertainty and scrutiny, particularly among members of the Senate who were tasked with reviewing the budgets and operational plans of these very departments. The scale of the reductions being proposed was unprecedented, and the lack of transparency around how these plans were being crafted and executed only deepened the alarm. Senator Van Hollen, along with Senator Moran, acted swiftly in response. On March 27th, they sent an official letter to the Secretary of the department in question, requesting access to the reorganization and RIF plans that had been submitted to the White House. Their concern was not just procedural but constitutional in nature. Congress holds the power of the purse and the responsibility of oversight, especially when executive decisions have direct implications on the nation's workforce and public services. These senators understood that massive staffing cuts and departmental reorganizations could have far-reaching impacts from national security and health care to weather forecasting and disaster response. Yet, despite the gravity of the matter, no response was received for more than 2 months. By June 4th, the issue had become even more pressing as the Senate entered a key phase in its budget review process. During a budget hearing, Senator Van Hollen publicly addressed the Secretary and pressed for a clear explanation regarding the missing plans. He emphasized that understanding the department's reorganization efforts was essential for evaluating the budget accurately. After all, if hundreds or even thousands of staff members were to be laid off or reassigned, that would directly influence how funds should be allocated. The Secretary's response, however, was vague and noncommittal. Rather than offering a timeline or assurance that the requested documents would be delivered, he stated only that the department would consider what information it could provide and promised to follow up.
Was upheld by an appellate court just a few days ago. I'm not asking you to opine on that legal decision. I'm simply asking you to provide the committee with the reorganization plan, and your response is maybe yes, maybe no. Am I getting that right? I mean, are you going to provide the plan to this committee as we review the budget for the upcoming year?
Well,
Now, the ongoing tension between Congress and the executive branch became even more pronounced as the department failed to respond to multiple formal inquiries regarding the RIF plans. Despite the urgency and legal importance of the requests, both Senator Van Hollen and Senator Moran received no meaningful response to their March 27th letter. This lack of cooperation raised serious red flags among lawmakers, particularly as they entered into crucial budget deliberations. Transparency is a cornerstone of democratic governance, and when a federal agency ignores or delays providing requested information, it obstructs the legislative branch's ability to do its job effectively. The committee responsible for evaluating the department's budget found itself in the dark about how staffing and operations might be changing, making it nearly impossible to assess resource needs or justify funding levels. During the June budget hearing, Senator Van Hollen confronted the secretary directly. His tone was firm but professional as he reiterated that the committee had not received any reorganization plans, despite their relevance to the budget. He posed a simple question: would the secretary commit to providing those plans? Instead of a straightforward answer, the secretary offered only vague assurances that he would consult with his department and decide what information could be shared. This noncommittal attitude was viewed as evasive and dismissive, particularly in light of the Senate's constitutional authority over federal spending and oversight. When lawmakers ask for information that directly affects national operations, especially during a budget hearing, there is an expectation of compliance and good faith. Senator Van Hollen did not let the issue drop. He reminded the secretary that the law requires executive departments to submit major organizational changes to Congress. These changes cannot be implemented in isolation or withheld from oversight simply because they originate from a presidential directive. The lack of a clear answer led to growing frustration as it became evident that the department was sidestepping its obligations. The senator warned that if responses to letters and inquiries were not provided promptly, he would continue pressing the matter in greater detail during future hearings. In an effort to move the discussion forward, Senator Van Hollen also sought unanimous consent to enter the letters and staff inquiries into the official record. He emphasized that these were not complex legal documents or classified information, but straightforward questions about the operational direction of the department. The secretary's unwillingness to confirm even a basic timeline for providing answers added to the perception that the agency was deliberately stalling.
I know that we're scrambling to try and rehire about 100 or hire 126 people, but Mr. Secretary, it's my understanding that as of today, offices in Kansas, Alaska, and Oregon are no longer operating 24 hours a day. Is that accurate?
The department employs 2,100 meteorologists and hundreds of other forecasters. Okay, this is less than 5%. We are fully staffed. There are no openings on the National Hurricane Center. Zero. It is fully staffed. We are fully ready for hurricane season, and our meteorologists
Mr. Secretary,
are fully staffed.
You did not answer
Fully
this.
staffed.
At the end, the decision to eliminate 600 positions from the National Weather Service, NWS, sent shockwaves through both the scientific and political communities. The move, which appeared to be part of a broader cost-cutting initiative tied to the RIF plans, was met with immediate concern from lawmakers and meteorologists alike. Weather forecasting plays a crucial role in public safety, especially during periods of severe weather such as hurricanes, tornadoes, and blizzards. When the National Weather Service, the nation's frontline defense against natural disasters, is significantly understaffed, the consequences can be catastrophic. The layoffs appeared to disregard the essential nature of forecasting operations and raised legitimate fears that certain regions would no longer be adequately protected. It soon became clear that the impact of these staff reductions was not theoretical. Reports from around the country indicated that numerous weather stations were unable to maintain 24/7 operations due to the lack of personnel. This directly compromised their ability to issue timely alerts and monitor rapidly changing weather conditions. In a particularly damning headline from the Washington Post dated May 15, it was revealed that NOAA, the agency overseeing the NWS, was scrambling to fill forecasting jobs as hurricane season looms. This was not merely a logistical issue, but a potential national emergency. The public relies on real-time updates during weather events, and delays in issuing warnings can result in property loss, injuries, and even fatalities. Faced with growing backlash and media scrutiny, the department was forced to walk back part of its decision. It began the process of rehiring approximately 126 forecasters and meteorologists in an effort to restore some of the lost capacity. However, this effort was seen by many as too little, too late. The fact that the agency had to urgently rehire specialists it had just let go signaled a severe miscalculation. More troubling still was that the reversal didn't fully address the staffing shortfall. At the time of the Senate hearing, there were still multiple stations, including those in Kansas, Alaska, and Oregon, that remained unable to operate continuously. These gaps were especially concerning given the seasonal threat of hurricanes and other major storms. During the hearing, Senator Van Hollen confronted the Secretary on this issue, asking directly whether those specific weather offices were operating full-time. The Secretary responded by stating that the department employed over 100 meteorologists and emphasized that the National Hurricane Center was fully staffed. While that may have been true, it failed to answer the question about regional coverage. It also sidestepped the reality that local weather offices play an equally vital role in tracking and issuing warnings for weather events that don't necessarily reach the level of national emergencies. Senator Van Hollen raised this issue during the hearing, pressing the Secretary for a clear answer about the operational status of these specific offices. Rather than directly confirming or denying whether the offices were running full-time, the Secretary pivoted to general statements about the department's overall staffing numbers. He claimed that only a small percentage of the workforce was affected and emphasized that the National Hurricane Center was fully staffed. However, this response failed to acknowledge the importance of regional offices, which play a critical role in providing localized forecasts and immediate weather warnings to communities across the country. The inability to provide a clear answer raised questions about whether the department truly grasped the real-world consequences of its staffing decisions. It also suggested a possible attempt to downplay or obscure the continued deficiencies in service. The fact that hundreds of employees had to be rehired after being let go was a clear indication that the initial decision was flawed, yet instead of accepting responsibility, the department appeared to be minimizing the ongoing impact. This lack of transparency and accountability only deepened the concern among lawmakers and the public. Moreover, the continued gaps in coverage exposed the vulnerability of the nation's weather infrastructure. In areas where offices could not operate 24/7, communities were left depending on distant centers that might not have the same capacity for timely, region-specific alerts. This delay could be the difference between life and death in cases of flash floods, tornadoes, or other sudden weather threats. The assumption that national centers could compensate for local shortfalls ignored the importance of on-the-ground expertise and rapid response capabilities. The situation also undermined trust in the department's leadership and planning abilities. If such a critical component of national safety could be compromised through poor decision making, what assurance was there that other essential services wouldn't face similar disruptions? The fact that lawmakers had to fight so hard just to get basic answers about staffing levels and operational status pointed to a deeper issue of mismanagement and lack of foresight. It also showed how executive-level decisions, made without adequate consultation or understanding of field conditions, could have real, dangerous consequences for the public.